Hello and welcome to Tiny Side Out with Dave and Mackie, haha, on WZZR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on. Actually, no, it's freedomslips.com again, that's right. Where it's more than just radio, so jump in the chat room if you can. This is show number 415, 510, and 400. Where did the time go? That means it's our 9th year. 9 years of doing this craziness. Who would have thunk it? Anyway, 9 years, 415. It's on air, online, and on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. If you missed Solaris' show, shame on you. You shouldn't have missed it. I missed it. Believe it or not, I was cleaning out pantries. That's not very exciting at all. But I did, and that's why I missed it. It took me 6 hours to clean my pantries. Yes, that's what preppers have to do, get rid of the food stuff that is no longer good. Now, if you have missed it, shame on you, shame on me, but you can catch it in the archives, right? It costs you $5 a month, US dollars, I think. It's a coffee. We keep saying this. It's not even a burger anymore. You go to any of these fancy burger joints, right? I'm not even going to buy you a burger and fries for $5. We're going to be $5. You have to get like a Happy Meal, right, at McDonald's. That's $5. And yeah, you can access to Freedom Slips archives and check out her shows, our shows, and all of the hosts' shows. You say that fast, real fast, 10 times in a row. And before we start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where I live, where my house stands. And for me, this is the Rock people. And for my esteemed co-host,
Dark and Jung.
Thank you, Dave. And yeah, and we'd like to pay respects to the elders, past, present, and future. And you know how I didn't let you speak there in the beginning? Yeah, it's just tit for tat, man.
Tit for tat.
What? I'm so ready, man. I took the breath and everything went. How are you?
Throw me the talking stick. Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm okay. Just full week of monitoring the media. In both, we're going to get to the topics, right? But a complete full week, just crazy. So some shout outs to the chat room, Wild Bob, June, Grog.
Hey, Wild Bob. Dune. Hey, Dune.
Yeah.
Blue Raven, just left. Too bad. Solaris. Okay, I miss you.
Do you know what they were talking about, Mackie? You'll never guess. It's topical.
The virus?
Yes. Wow. When I said topical, you had an option then to say,
I know, right?
Hand cream?
Ointment?
Ointment?
It's itchy. Get the ointment.
Get the ointment.
I can
they were talking about the coronavirus. Of course, it's everywhere. And once again, Mackie, this week, I threw out into social media to correct everybody because I'm sure it's an OCD of mine. It's quite developed already. But that is the difference between the naming of the virus and the disease. Now, the disease is like AIDS, where the virus was HIV, right? So this is SARS with then a hyphen, and if you don't know a hyphen, it's a minus sign. Then COV with a little O, big C, big V, and then another hyphen or a minus sign, and the number 2. This is SARS. It's basically SARS coronavirus 2. That's what it is. That's the virus name. The disease is COVID-19, coronavirus 19. That's what it means. Yeah. So
you're so OCD. You're so OCD.
I can't help it. All of the media is saying coronavirus, which is not the specific virus. It's only the family of viruses that look like the corona of the sun. That's why it's named like that. And that also, it has in its family the normal viruses. It also has MERS and SARS, and it has this thing. But it's also the flu, right? So, coronavirus. No, stop talking about it being coronavirus, right? It's SARS-CoV-2. That's what it's. Coronavirus 2. That's it. Inside my skin, I'm bursting out with I don't know what, anxiety or something, right? Every time it's mentioned incorrectly, and it's almost every single news outlet is doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Does my head in.
I know, right?
How can they be getting it so wrong?
Well,
I posted links from the World Health Organization on social media saying you're getting it wrong. This is what it looks like. This is how it's described. And they're going, no, how can, because SARS is a syndrome. So how can a syndrome be the virus name when the disease has the V at the end? And that's the virus. No,
because V for disease. Yeah. Woo!
That's right.
Spelled goodly.
Better goodly too, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Look, it's just very funny, and it gets my goat up, and I'm just incapable of controlling myself. Plus, Mackie, I just offered some friendly advice on social media, and you know what happens? You get the trolls.
But you know what the worst thing is you can ever give anyone?
What advice?
The very worst thing. It doesn't matter how well intentioned it is, right? It's unsolicited advice. It's the worst gift anyone could ever give. Because people hate it. Oh, really, Dave? Tell me more about the things I don't. Make me feel more like an idiot. Come on. Okay, I will. Just because they opened that door, didn't they? They opened the door for you. There you go. Don't ask follow-up questions. That's the problem. But of course, you get trolls too. See, that's the thing. The internet, living in little cold troll caves. You say that real fast.
So I have a friend who's a nurse. She's a nurse. She's an RN, a registered nurse. And she went on to tell me how the virus was innocuous. It doesn't matter. It's only 3% or less the death rate. So who cares, right? and I said, well, 10% at least of the people who are acquiring the virus show disease symptoms which become critical. And then there's a percentage of those that pass away. But it's touch and go if you get into that serious, situation, right? If you've got the disease in because remember this, the virus, you either catch it or you don't catch it, right? You either have it or you don't have it. How bad it is depends on how you're fighting it, how well you're fighting it, and if you've got any other conditions which will assist its demise or your demise, right? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't care. And neither to a certain extent do I care whether you're listening to the advice or not. I'm just saying, well, you know what? As sort of like a duty of care. Mackie, you and I, we're out there, we're crawling through all the information.
Way out there.
I dragged you with me then. So we're out there in the media where my friends, my friend circle is large, may not be, right? They might not have their finger on the pulse or their ear to the ground, or what's the word in the street, Johnny? From my favorite TV show. However, we are. So it's like, well, I'm going to just show you some information, and then what you do with it up to you. So what's the first call I get, Mackie? The first trolley call from one of my friends? You do this all the time. It's all fear. It's all fear porn, and I'm not listening to you anymore because it's like the sky is falling, right? What's that expression about the wolf? Cried wolf, right? So you're just crying wolf. Actually, I'm so not, right? I'm just saying.
Suck it up.
So it's funny because I'm getting accused of all this stuff. The nurse is telling me there's nothing wrong with the virus at all, and even she named it incorrectly. She was talking the disease. The disease is harmless. No, the virus you may call harmless, but the disease isn't harmless. That's why it's a disease. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it went around for a little while, and then Belinda jumped in, my partner, and said, well, you know what? We have a daughter who can't get sick from it, and because if she does, her condition will most likely not turn out well for her. Yeah, negatively. It's probably the most negative you could possibly be. So we've got to be, a little insular, and then they all shut up. It's like, yeah, I got my big guns to come in and shoot around for a while in a conversation. It's very funny. I'm just really astounded. Mecca, I heard something. I'm going to give you the mic in 2 seconds. 2 seconds. And that is when you don't think it's coming to you, when you don't think it is in your town and beginning to spread, if you don't think that, then I think you're putting yourself at risk. And why would you want to risk it? And this is the argument, oh, if it's only 10% that die, that means I've got 90% chance I'm going to live.
Hooray!
Yay me. But you're not thinking about all the other people in your life where it's, maybe this is 100-to-1 contact patch, right? So you get it. You have access to 100 people in your life around you who have access to others. So do you want to put all of them at risk? And if you don't care, I can't stop you. But if you don't want to get sick, wash your hands, sing happy birthday twice in your head. Don't touch your face and eyes and nose and mouth with your hands before they're washed, right? I mean, it sounds simple. Actually, get really good sleep, because the more sleep you get and the better sleep you have, the more your body's resistance is available to be utilized. Otherwise, you're wearing it down, and it's going to be even easier to infect you. And the other one is don't be an idiot and go to, walk around public breathing in right next to everybody. Try to stay at least a few feet away from everybody. They say 6 feet around everybody, because just using feet, people know what that is. Try to avoid, public transport and the shopping carts, as I mentioned last week. Try to have hand sanitizer in the car so you're not re-spreading it everywhere within your own environment. So you've washed your hands, you just come in contact with again. Just do all these things that you would want to do. But Meki, the biggest message from our government this week, from the health minister, was
don't wear masks.
Yeah, don't. What are you doing? And go to the football games and go out there. He doesn't know it's not football season. Go to the football games. Go out there. Just live your life as normal.
Whatever you useless idiots do, just do that.
just keep doing the thing you're supposed to keep doing. Now, Meki, look, I don't know about you, but I sometimes feel like I've got a tinfoil hat on. Hence the name of the show, Shiny Side Out. But that sounds like a true invitation, a nice plug, by the way, right? A true invitation to go and catch the virus.
Yeah. Well, I've got a lot of things to say, my friend.
I know, right? It's all yours.
Yeah,
I'm punting it to you.
Oh, no. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Just it'll be a while. Okay, here we go. Look, there's a couple of things that happened this week. Dave said we monitored the news. Yes, we did. But that's, again, how many news sources can you monitor and how accurate is the information? I still don't believe all the numbers, but that's just me. It's okay. It doesn't matter. The numbers are, right now the numbers are scary enough. Just one thing to the numbers and the virus and the disease and all these wonderful things and the apparent 10% mortality rate potentially, right? Now, everybody's worried. Of course, you should be worried. That's understandable. But you put it in context. The 86,000 people have been confirmed. That's globally. And 79,000 of those are in China, right? There are 7.5 billion people on the planet. 7.5 billion. Okay, so right now it's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction that has the disease is in any way affected. I'm not saying that's not going to change. It may not. In China it seems to slow down. If you can believe the numbers. Again, neither here nor there. However, yeah. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Or don't get played on YouTube.
The reason why I say that is because there's proof been leaked this week that 2 cities were asked directly by the government, and the messenger leaked the information out as it was being replied back to the government. And that was that they were the two cities or provinces, I'm not quite sure, I'm trying to get my head around it, were asked by the government to delete all of their information regarding the confirmed infections.
That's nice.
Wow. And they've replied back saying, it's all memory cards, disks, whatever it is, even a whole computer if you got it on there. Destroy them, completely destroy them, don't want to know anything about it. And they replied back saying, all things have been deleted and confirmed and destroyed and blah, 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 blah.
Well, that's okay for China, but now that the disease has spread to, and this is interesting, I've got a whole bunch of stuff to say to that as well. Iran, Italy specifically, and South Korea. So we can see probably a more uninhibited view of the world. And if my projections, I hope they're not right, but if they're right by the end of next week, so this time next week, maybe before then, the numbers in Iran, Italy, and South Korea should be approaching those in China. Always assuming that China's leveling up, right? But again, it's only 10% again at this point mortality rate, and we see only. I'm saying this in comparison to other diseases out there. What should really worry everybody is TB, tuberculosis, multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. 250,000 people just in Papua New Guinea are infected with MDR TB. Okay?
And you don't live through it.
And that's a death sentence. Just to be clear, right? 250,000. Now, 10 years ago, when we first talked about this, about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit less, we brought the 2014, so yeah, not quite. Anyway, the point is, there was an article we shared with you last week that said, Papua New Guinea is on the brink of a TB epidemic. Article last year, July, Asia Pacific, or the Pacific region, to be potentially destabilized by a TB epidemic out of Papua New Guinea. So in the 5-6 years that had passed between the two articles, obviously nobody had done anything because it was Papua New Guinea. Who cares? 250,000. That's just one incident. I mean, the thing is this: more people die of the common flu each year than of the COVID-19. Okay, that's more. And that's just the flu. And in fact, you still have a higher chance of getting struck by lightning than getting an infection. Okay, 85,000, or let's call it 100,000 infected, and 7.7 billion. Okay, I'm not saying it can't happen, or I'm not saying it's not going to spread much quicker and much further. I think we still have a chance of stopping the spread. But to me, and this is where I'm going to go into my rant, my friend.
Okay, to me, just wait. Just before you launch on the rant. So in South Korea last week, we advertised that it was 433 people infected. Now it's 3,526.
Yep.
So 433 versus 3,526. Japan only really doubled in the last week from 122 to 241. Iran, this is a big surprise, 28 last week and 593. And Italy was 79 last week to 1,128.
Isn't it higher now?
No.
The number that you have here is higher. It's the wrong number? Is it?
It was the wrong number, yeah.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so now, coronavirus, yes, it is serious, and we need to arrest it, especially if some of the rumors are true, that it isn't actually what they say it is. But again, we're not there yet. But the thing is this. What are the impacts here? What are the impacts? And what is the game plan? Again, I'm not saying anybody's responsible. I'm not. But if somebody were responsible, they couldn't have done it at a better time, and they couldn't have done it more effectively to hurt the world economy, to hurt globalization. Oh, completely. To hurt the United States as well as China, believe it or not. Hurt Australia, Southeast Asia in the process, now hurting Europe. And economically, because the fear is shutting things down. The fear is shutting things down. The flu doesn't do this every year. The government doesn't call on you to shut down your business. But millions of people get the flu, and thousands and thousands of people die. Yeah, but the thing is, the flu hits us harder than COVID-19. Okay? The flu hits us harder.
Well, we've got it. This is a real bad. It's a real Boston, really bad situation here with supply chain.
Yeah, exactly. So this I'm not saying it's a hype, but certainly look, it is serious. But it is the secondary consequences, the secondary knock-on effects that are the key thing here. Number one, the supply chain. Okay, people are rethinking globalization. People are rethinking manufacturing in China.
Absolutely. Yeah, we should now diversify manufacturing across the planet.
100%, right? No, it makes sense. We should have done it anyway, but maybe we needed this, right? But there it is. So the face of manufacturing, the face of the supply chain across the globe might very well end as a result of this. Companies might suffer, companies might disappear, other companies might jump up. There might be jobs back in countries that haven't manufactured for decades. However, the single biggest other thing, right, that for me is a massive smoking gun as far as overreaction is concerned, is the redistribution of wealth. Now, let me give you a little quick history lesson. What do we think, apart from the monetary system and government, what do we think is the longest con that we've been running?
Money
in the world. Well, that's right, money and government. But as a consequence, the stock market. So the stock market.
That was the elephant in the room.
I know, right? The stock market. It's pink too. The stock market, in and of itself, is a fiction, right? It's a fiction. It is a place you can go to and sell parts of your company to other people if you want to raise money. It's a sensible idea. I got a company. I make ships. I sell 1,000 shares in my company. Okay, my company is worth $1 million, and each share that I determine is going to be worth $1,000. I might hold the majority of the shares, but I can sell the rest and raise some money. That's a sensible, reasonable thing to do, I guess, right? If you don't go to the bank, right? But now the shares are out in the world, right? And now because they're out in the world, people buy them. People are now looking at the shares. They no longer care about your company. You give a hoot about your company. They're looking at what happens to your share price, right? Up or down. Mm-hmm. And some of the greatest parasites on the planet, the stockbrokers, who don't actually do anything, right? They add no value. They just look at the shares, sell them, buy them, and get a commission on whatever sale. No matter if the customer loses or wins money, they get a commission on the transaction. So the stockbrokers is a brilliant business. So parasites. And so you've got this money floating around in stock land, and let's say, for argument's sake, you're doing really well. Your company's doing well, market's doing well, people are buying your shares. Everybody wants to buy your shares. So if everybody wants to buy your shares, they're willing to pay premium, right? If they're willing to pay premium, your share price goes up. The company value that you have hasn't gone up, but your share price has. So your company all of a sudden is worth a lot more. That was the .com bubble, right? Nobody made anything. There was no business plan, but everyone wanted to buy .com shares because that was the good thing to do, right?
You can make money in that, can you? There was no history on it, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. They still have to figure out how to make money on Facebook. Well, it's advertising, really, on data. It's your data they're making money on, right? That's really the kicker.
Mm-hmm. That's how they do it for free.
That's how nothing is free in this world, my friend. Right. Not even lunch. But the thing is this, right? It's always an ulterior motive. So all of a sudden, your company's worth a lot of money. You go, oh, look at me, I'm so rich, beautiful, spending the money, whatever. It's nice, right? However, at some point, somebody might say, oh, you know what, that company is not working, or a 9/11 event happens, and confidence crashes, investors feel unsecure, and they want to sell all the shares and all the stocks. They share because who knows what's going to happen. I want some security, I want certainty. So what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy gold. So I'm going to sell everything else because gold that's shiny and useful and also very valuable. I'm going to buy gold. Or I buy US dollars, which you shouldn't, but people still do. So whatever. But whenever there's a crisis, US dollar goes up, gold goes up, because everybody is still a little monkey trying to push some buttons. That's who we are. The thing is this, though, and this is really, really critical to understand. Mm-hmm. The company that is making these ships, right, is still there. All the factory, all the people are still employed. They're still making the ships. The share price might have plummeted, but the factory still stands. It still is a business that's viable. So anybody that sells at that point their shares is a moron. Why? Because they're making a paper loss, a real loss. So let's say the share price goes from $1,000 to $1. You've lost $999. No, you haven't. Mm-hmm. You haven't until you sell your shares.
That's right.
It's a paper loss. Will it bounce back? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. I'm not a stock market guy, right? But my point is your loss isn't a real loss until you sell your stock. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing is this. Your loss is someone's gain. 1 second. Give me 1 second.
Well, it can be.
Sorry, I'm back. So it's.
I filled the gap, Mackie.
No, I thank you very much, sir. and the key thing here to understand is the loss is someone else's gain, because someone else picked that dollar, the share for $1 up somewhere, right? They maybe pay $2, right? And here it is. The company is still there. Don't forget, they're still making ships. All of a sudden, the market bounces back, because markets bounce back. That's what they do. All of a sudden, your money, $999 of it, or maybe whatever you spend on the share in the first place, right? Maybe you spend $100 on the share, you lost $99, right? That's gone. That money is now down the drain, nothing you can do about it. The other dude that bought your share for $1 or $2 or $3 or whatever, and now that the company's bumped back up, he's made a mozza, right? And that is what's happening right now. We're seeing a redistribution, another redistribution of wealth from the middle class. Because who plays in the stock market? The middle class. Because the poor people don't have a stock portfolio. The middle class and the and I want to call them the poor rich or the relatively rich. They play the stock market, the millionaires of the world, right? I got it. The inconsequential rich. Those ones. They're playing the stock market. Now the elite, the consequential rich, like they're rich. You can't. There's not enough numbers to count their wealth, right? And
They're
powerful
rich beyond numbers. Yeah,
completely. So every now and again, there's this correction or crash. I'll explain the difference in a second. In the stock market, where we see a lot of money, that people, the stock market lost $2 billion. No, some schmucks that sold their shares lost $2 billion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not the stock market, really, because it'll bounce back. And then they all said, the market is going to bounce back. Well, yes, of course it will. If everybody held on to their stocks and nobody, went out panic selling, the stock market wouldn't have crashed. But you need an event to make people panicky, right? And this is what this is. It's just another one of those. So billions, in the end, hundreds of billions, maybe trillions of dollars will change hands, and the rich are getting invariably richer. So it is the stock market, in my opinion, was created as a vehicle to redistribute wealth. Okay, from the okay or the well-to-do to the super rich. Okay, the poor, we've taken what we can from the poor. Yeah, you're done. Yes, sleep in the gutter. No, we're focusing now on the middle class and the inconsequential rich. The wannabes. We're talking about old money here. We're the old money. We're the old. Look at us. And we're going to take all your money, and they do. That's why I don't go on the stock market. I'm not playing the stock market. I'm not playing that game. I'm not going on it. If I had a tip, certainly make 1,000% profit, I might. Now, what's a correction? A correction is what we're seeing right now, right? Within the quarter, a month, 1 month is bad, another month, maybe a week is bad. So you lose 10, 20 points even of the share value in the stock market environment. That's a correction. Okay, it stops being called a correction when it happens over 2 consecutive quarters. Then you've got the S hitting the fan. Is what you have at that point. You've got a crisis. You've got a stock market crash. Okay, if it happens over 2 consecutive quarters. But you also have is a recession. Okay, a recession is also defined as 2 negative quarters in this context, with negative impact on the stock market. Now, this is all important. Okay, because again. Yes, it's tough and it's a bad situation, and it's spreading. The super spreaders, but we don't seem to avoid. I mean, there's some 38 million people living with HIV/AIDS. 38 million are living with HIV/AIDS today in this day and age, right? We don't really hear much about it anymore. It's not really making the headlines. They're not in the news cycle anymore. The infections are still up, right? Again, hepatitis. Hepatitis B, hepatitis C, through the roof, okay? TB, like I said, tuberculosis, that's a problem. It's a huge problem, right? The plague is back, for crying out loud. The Chinese city years ago was shut down because of this was actually the bubonic plague. A few years ago in a city in India had an outbreak of pneumonic plague.
That's right.
So there are diseases out there, and they're not going away. In fact, measles has made a huge comeback. But the Zika virus, there's a whole bunch of stuff. But again, let's focus on the disease that we call COVID-19 for a second. So a lot of my friends and family members are doctors here in Sydney. It's just how it is. And there's a lot of them, right? We got epidemiologists, we have immunologists, we have oncologists. They're the heart specialists, etc., etc. Anyway,
Don't say pediatrician.
No, not one. So I sent a message. I know. So I sent a message out. Look, I bought a whole bunch of military-grade P99 masks, which cost me a bundle. Did I waste my money? So I asked these doctors, right? And these are some fairly senior doctors in New South Wales, even in Australia, if you want to go that far. Did I waste my money? And then I also asked because another friend of the shows, and I don't want to know don't want to mention his name without his express permission, mentioned that an old malaria drug had proven effective in the fight against COVID-19. So this is from the PubMed.gov, this U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institute of Health website, and the article is titled is from the 19th of February 2020. Breakthrough. Chloroquine, that's the disease, phosphate, has shown apparent efficacy in treatment of COVID-19-associated pneumonia in clinical studies. And it's by 3 Chinese authors. So this comes out of China. And what it says here is chloroquine phosphate, an old drug for treatment of malaria, is shown to have apparent efficacy and acceptable safety. So it's not going to make you worse than the disease. Against COVID-19 associated pneumonia in multi-center clinical trials conducted in China. The drug is recommended to be included in the next version of the guidelines for the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of pneumonia caused by COVID-19, etc., etc., etc. Okay? So that, and thank you again to the friend of the show. So I'll just call you SL. You know who you are. And it really is greatly appreciated. I mean, it's great to have people out there in the world that just keep their eyes open and let us know what's going on. Now, so I asked that, right? So I asked this is a very senior doctor in Sydney. And he said, this is the answer. And no mask and no drug will help with COVID-19. Maintenance of health and immune system before you get exposed is your safest bet. Again, like Dave said, sleep, rest, eat well, and all these wonderful things. Now, another doctor then, this is another doctor messaging the same doctor, we're all in the same chat, right? Now, they've tried some anti-HIV drugs overseas. Could they be of benefit? And this is the somewhat longer answer. Now, okay, SARS-CoV-2 is not a retrovirus like HIV. Coronaviruses are not similar to influenza viruses either. So drugs like oseltamivir, which is Tamiflu, are not useful either. Death is by secondary bacterial pneumonia or acute respiratory distress, ARDS. Antibiotics targeting bacteria cause secondary infection like pneumococcus and staphylococcus would be useful. Steroids in the event of ARDS also, right? So, so there are treatment protocols that could be followed, but it's the secondary bacterial infection that does you in, okay? So it's like a 1-2 punch, really, with the virus and the bacteria, boom, boom, right? So the virus itself, we can't really, treat quite yet.
They are working
the secondary infections. Yeah, exactly. The secondary infections we can. So that's really important to understand. This is where we are. You can listen to it again. It'll be on YouTube. You know, if you want to take some notes, it's all good. But it's important to understand that what I'm seeing here is a twofold thing, right? I'm seeing an event like this unfolding. Again, the entire severity of it is unknown because we don't have the correct numbers in my mind yet. We will have by the end of next week. We will have a much better picture of what this actually means. It is impacting the economy massively, and I believe this event is also being used to redistribute a whole bunch of wealth via the stock market from the middle class and the inconsequential rich to the elite. That's my opinion. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I also believe if there's a nation-state player involved, it is not the US, it is not China, it is none of the people you think it is. Well, actually, some of you might. I won't say who it is because I can just get my house burnt down. So, but I urge you to look at where the virus has shown up, right? Look at where, I mean, forget China, of course, there needs to be an epicenter, and it's China, but then look at where it has shown up and where the effects are worst at the moment. And then look at who has had the least in certain regional areas and who stands to benefit the most from hurting those particular countries. Okay? This is really critical to understand. I'm not saying who it is because I'm not stupid.
Yeah, right.
He thinks I am, that I'm not. So
kids start the car for daddy.
I know what. So as you can see here, it's a much more complex animal than just following the spread or repeating to you guys what the news has told us. And this is in response to a chat comment last week. This is much deeper, and it takes a lot deeper thinking. You have to connect things, and you have to understand things really well. What are the knock-on effects, right? What is happening in the rest of the world? What will happen in the future? How will this event change us? I mean, already the economic impact is significant already, right? This is just a couple months in. If this stays with us for any significant amount of time,
at least 3 months to 6 months.
Yeah, quite possibly, right? Now, imagine all of that. It's just sticking around for that much longer. I mean, personally, I was meant to go to a whole bunch of conferences across the world, different places, and I think 5 or 6 of those were completely canceled. No travel. We're not having people in the room. It's just not going to happen. And was it Ernst & Young, the CEO that came out? Was it Ernst & Young, or was it one of the consultancy firms? He said, no travel. All travel is shut down. The countries are closing their borders. We didn't close our borders to Papua New Guinea, and they got 250,000 MDR TB cases.
That's right.
Our borders are open, yeah. I mean, we close our borders to China here and there and this and that. And again, numbers, perspective. we are now in the 3rd month of this. Okay, let's call it 90,000 people infected. Official numbers, 90,000 people, right? Looking at outpatient data, we're looking roughly 10-ish%. People that are most infected by this are the elderly or people with underlying health condition. Now, there's another piece here, which I'm a cynic, right? But I'm also a realist.
No.
What is the Dave? What is the single one of the not the but one of the single biggest problems that is stampeding?
Can I
towards
answer this?
Please.
I'd love to answer your question, Smecky. The cost of the elderly in healthcare.
There you go. It is the aging population, and it's a problem. And in fact, it's a problem for the vast majority of developed nations. What happened? What happened is people got educated. You know, women started having jobs. Women started having education. I want a career. I want a life. So what it means is they don't marry, or they marry late, or they have kids late as well, or not at all. And so what happens in these developed nations, Germany, all of Europe pretty much, America, Japan, Australia, Germany has got a huge issue. Now, Germany's problem is so big that they let in 1 million Syrian refugees. You think, oh, Germans, they're such nice people, and they let all these people in, it's so great, such humanitarians. Well, there is some of that, right? I mean, it's been like, 1,000 years since World War II, but there's still this collective guilt Germans have. This is not this, though. Germans are running out of young people, okay? The Germans are running out of young people. So what do? You bring in a young population. A lot of the Syrian refugees were young, but Syrians, and I know this is a stereotypical thing, but normally Muslim families have quite a lot of children, especially if they come from not first world countries. So what the Germans are counting on is that these Syrian refugees will breed a lot and take up the German way of life. One generation down the track, we might avert the issue that we had of the aging population, or at least it'll help. It'll help. There'll be more taxpayers, right? That's really what it is. 1 million. So, but nonetheless, for the most part, the problem of an aging population still exists, right? It's a real thing, and it's due to the invention of the birth control pill. It's due to women having more rights and being able to actually have a life and a career, and not just be breeding machines, right? So that's all goodness, right? But as I said, it led to a decline in births. It led to a decline in children. Child mortality is really low in developed nations. That's great. Childbirth is just not enough. It's not enough. There was a baby bonus. In fact, in Australia, we had for a few years, right, Dave? $1,000, $2,000 per baby. I don't know if that's still a thing or not. To encourage people to have children. Like what's $1,000 going to do for you? That's like nappies for like a week. That's what you can buy with that. Right? So it's really critical to understand that if you find a way to reduce your aging population significantly, you're not facing those problems anymore, right? And this is really interesting as well, because again, I know this is like we're very much in tinfoil head territory here, right? Thin eyes. Who goes on cruises, Dave?
Me.
Okay.
Oh, the elderly.
The elderly, but Dave too. Dave is also the elderly. The elderly go on cruises.
I represent them all.
That's you are the elderly. Well done there. Represent. No, by far the largest market, the largest consumers of cruises are the elderly. They're retired. When I say the elderly, anyone over 60, 65, that all your life you worked hard, you do yourself, solid, and take a Caribbean cruise or a South Pacific cruise or whatever cruise, tickles your fancy. Maybe you like to see the Arctic or the Antarctic. I don't know, whatever, But it's elderly people that go on cruises. And these cruises have thousands and thousands of them on board, right? And they are not well for the most part. I mean, you're older, you are more prone to have diseases. It's just the way it is. It's life. And we had outbreaks.
Also more prone to speak your mind.
Oh, that too. No, that's a fair point. That's absolutely true. So the elderly are, in my opinion, I think we saw targeting there. That's my opinion on the cruise ships. I know there's only two was it 2 or 3 cruise ships that were affected? I can't remember.
Two confirmed.
Yeah. But I mean, maybe it was just a test balloon. How well does this work on a cruise ship? But yeah, that's awesome. It's working really well. Look at that. Look at all the these are the numbers we're looking for. So I'm not saying this was full blown event. Maybe it was just a test balloon. Maybe it's someone's testing some operational some operational plans here they have maybe for another virus. Who knows? The point, though, is if you look at it all, right, and you can go really nuts with this thing, and you can go down the rabbit hole and do all kinds of things like we did with you guys, talking about the death of microbiologists and all these, wonderful things that have happened over the last few years. Then you have, again, Dave, bang for buck, biology is where it's at. Biological weapons are the ones. Mm-hmm. Chemical, nuclear, atomic, too expensive and hard to clean up. If you have a biological agent and let's say you're really good at engineering these things, right, and you already have the vaccines or immune tablets or whatever you have, then this becomes a lot less volatile, right? The better we get at this microbiology and nanotechnology, the less likely is it for the aggressor to be affected by, whatever biological entity they put out there, bacterium, a virus, whatever. Mm-hmm. So for me, if somebody really wanted to do something like that, nuclear is right out. That's completely pointless, nuclear weapons. I don't know why we have them anymore. Maybe, if there's an alien invasion or something. but to use nuclear weapons on this planet now with 7.5 billion people, forget about it. That's just insane. I'm not saying it can't happen, right? Don't get me wrong. We've done crazier things. But unlikely. And you also have to ask yourself, well, what are the end goals of war? Power, yes. Conquest, yes. Supremacy, domination, all of those, yeah. And the thing is this: you can't win a war unless you put troops on the ground. You can bomb anyone, you can destroy countries, you can turn them into a sheet of glass. But did you win the war? Well, I guess from a statistical point of view, you did.
If they concede that you win. Yeah. Then you won, but it's not like raising the flag and taking the territory kind of win.
Yeah. So you have to ask yourself, what's the goal? Anytime you do anything, anytime I go into a meeting now, we discuss things and say, okay, well, how do we define success? How do we know when we're done? Mm-hmm. This is a project. That's great. When do we know that we were successful in achieving what we wanted to achieve? And these war planners are the same way, right? It's not just about blindly, trying to club each other over the head. No, there has to be an end game. Right, there has to be a plan, and then once you've got the plan, there has to be an end game after the close of the war as well. What do you do then, right? That's where the big bucks roll in. Look at Iraq, right? They bombed that country, mercilessly, and then all the contractors come in to rebuild it. Ka-ching!
That's right.
It's about money. It's about profit. This is what drives people. This is not about these are not extermination wars. These are not ideological wars. This is not communism against capitalism. This is not Nazism against liberalism. These are all dead. It's all about money and power and greed. These are the drivers for modern warfare. And if you don't know that, read your history books, starting with the 30 Years' War, right? And you can see how confused things were there. It's just nuts. But the point is that these things are happening today, right? And are people testing these things? They're testing them all the time. Sometimes they escape. Did this one escape? I don't know. Did someone plant it? Did someone seed it out there? I don't know. Could they do it? Yes, they could. If you look at some of the countries that were affected, they still can't figure out how it got to Italy.
That's right.
Their
traceability becomes already impossible. Yeah. Yeah. And so, Mekki, the other thing.
Good.
Yeah. So South Korea, U.S. military army checkpoint guy, he has it. Can't tell you whatever happened. Doesn't even know.
See?
And so this is, and you're not up and personal with people when you're at a checkpoint. You're close, within 6 feet, but that's pretty much the limit of it. Mm-hmm. One thing that I learned, Mekki, about this week was in Hubei, the Sura. Remember how I mentioned that this is there's a bunch of things that qualify to suggest that the virus itself is transmissible by what are the vectors? Droplets, saliva, fecal, surface, sputum, air had a question mark. It's definitely now able to commute through the air as very fine droplets as you speak, not spitting, but in your normal exhaled air is the thing. So it's pretty chronic. I'll just say I think we're in a state now where.
So are we saying it's airborne?
Well, it's airborne, and in Hubei they've got grates in the street which the sewer runs below. And there's a thing about spraying everything was because fecal matter can contain the actual virus itself, but there's no material there to reproduce it. So it must only be coming off it as like steam, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
That's a whole new way of thinking how you can become infected, simply just being near someone as they breathe.
Yeah, and that's why, like I said, the friend of ours, there's a senior medical professional here in Sydney, says masks do nothing. And I got the P99 ones. It cost me a bundle too. But I look, you know what? I'm even if it's a placebo, I'll still put them on myself. And
my absolutely! You better do it rather than not do it.
You know.
Hey, Mackie, and then one thing. Oh, sorry. One thing about the money, following the money. Have a look about which CEOs have stepped down recently.
Good
in
point.
advance since December to now. Yep. They've stepped down and left with all of their money.
Yeah.
So Salesforce, the CEO of Salesforce, for instance. I'm just gonna. I'm done. I'm out of here.
I'm so rich now.
Yeah, I'm so rich I can quit. This is one of the things from a tinfoil hat perspective. I had to question who's going underground, like who's going to, let's call it to ground. Yeah. Who's going to ground and who are they? Where are they from? And there's a lot of very large tech company execs all sort of just quitting for apparently no apparent reason. So, is it designed? Was there warning? Or did they know in advance that this thing's going to be a thing and they need to get out? Mackie, if you could have a virus, like from a virus perspective, you could have a virus and throw it out into the wild and it killed 37 or 80% of the elderly, right? 80 and above or 70 above. But it was, 30 of the 60s and up. But then when you get to the 50s and lower, it hunkers down to like around about, 0.2%, all the way down to children under 9, no effect whatsoever.
Yeah.
Wow. So you could infect, in fact, the entire planet with the virus, and only when you get to a certain age that it kills you.
Yeah. So look, again, this is actually the one aspect I found the most interesting. I'm glad. Yeah, but I'm glad for it, to be honest. Obviously, having a family and you having a family as well, you think about things differently. But yeah, it's also odd because the flu isn't like that, and if any other disease isn't like that. So what is this? Is this well, it's possible. If anyone that doesn't know, in Logan's Run, when you hit 30, you're retired. You're retired. You're essentially told you're going to this wonderful place, and what they really do is they launch you into the air and they shoot you down with lasers.
And then you turn into the food.
No. That's Make Room. Soylent Green.
Soylent Green. That's right.
Yeah. That's also a classic. Oh my God, that was a classic movie. The story is brilliant. The story is Make Room. I can't remember who wrote it, but both Logan's Run, and I've got both books here actually in my enormous library, not so little actually. I recommend read, guys. Read. The more you read, the more you educate yourselves. TV doesn't quite do it. If you like to listen to books, that's cool too, But do yourself a favor. Read, understand the world around you. It makes a lot more sense once you get some of the historical grounding, and don't just trust the mainstream history. There was a history outside of Europe, just to let everybody know. There was a history that has nothing to do with Europe whatsoever. People were getting quite well without Europeans around for long times. It's a thing, right? But look. It is really a bit of a situation. Did I expect it? I expected something. Again, the hypothesis demands that there needs to be an event to really reduce our numbers. I don't think this is it, but an event like this could very well be it. Again, it's not something I want to be right about. It's not something I encourage and something I want. I want life to just be boring. I don't want to live in interesting times, Dave. I want to live in boring times. I want to live in the times of who was it? Pericles.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Pericles for 30 years was ruling in Athens. Nothing. It's like a paragraph in the history books. Before and after Punic Wars, right? Pages and pages of the Punic Wars, which lasted a couple of years each. 30 years of peace and prosperity in Athens. Paragraph. The Periclean age. That's where I want to be. I don't want strife. I don't want interesting times, man. I really don't.
I would want one that had toilet paper and flushing toilets. By the way, just letting you know. I don't want a rag on a stick. Just FYI. So there's times to want to live, man. But if you've got a nice stream up really high up in the mountain where there's no one above you, great.
We got 3 hours, guys. We got 3 minutes. Thank you, Omega Logos. Thank you.
So I just want to say that the China infections for this week are quite low, and they don't seem to be going up at all. And we think the whole planet, Mackie, all the media on the whole planet is suspicious of these figures, and that's funny because the rest of the world, the total world infections outside of that it's climbing greater than exponential, if that's even a thing. I mean, if that's you can't, exponential seems like it's doubling every day, but this is going fast. This is really fast. It's faster than my curve on my graph, and it concerns me greatly. And so now, Becky, everyone that's over, like 100 people, I've started plotting a graph so we can see who's winning. It's sort of like a race. It's a race to the bottom. To see who's getting the most infections. And look, it worries me where we're not getting telemetry out of some places where they're not, they claim no one's died, or the media says people have died, but the figures don't show it. I really do worry sometimes that, the sharing information is not as seamless and as transparent as you might think it is. We've seen this in the past with nuclear incidences where governments have been quite, silent about the true nature of the thing, only to be, later on proved right. That our scientists have found their country to have been withholding information. I think we're looking at the same thing. I think this is much bigger. I hope it doesn't go where it is, but I'm afraid I think it will. I think it's going to go where we've discussed tonight already. I really do, Mackie. I think the supply chain is going to cause industry to have a really deep look at itself and realize, offshoring without resilience to a single country to do everything is a really bad idea.
Yes.
There's music. All right.
Don't go anywhere. Donate if you can.
You're back with David Meckie's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com on the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button on the station's website or subscribe to the archives for only $5 US per month. If you're new to Shiny Side Out, welcome aboard. This is a tinfoil hat zone where we can talk crazy ideas. If you wish, we talk about news and we have a show arc. So keep your arms within the vehicle, turn off your personal reality inverters, and please no flash photography. We're glad you're on board though, however, and thank you for inviting us into your lives. So follow, subscribe, or otherwise for the appropriate social media platform. We're halfway through, believe it or not, show number 415. I was going to say 510 and 400, but that's Meckie's job, who's probably still muted. And we're talking about biological weapons. And this is part 5 in the series of shows so far. And to put this in perspective, this will probably be the last show of the biological weapons show cycle. So get yourself some great merchandise from the station's website, maybe an EMP-proof thumb drive with survival documents on it, or even a 75,000 seed pack that you can put in the freezer and last for years. And they're heirloom seeds too. They're not, these dodgy Monsanto seeds that, only last one generation. Good luck with that. Look, but follow the station's instructions carefully when donating to the station for a gift, because you want to ensure two things. One, that your name and address and the thing you've chosen, you've stated correctly. And the other is that you've checked with your local customs officers or office to ensure that you can import the items. So if it was a shotgun, no. If it's a seed pack, in fact, in Australia, no, you can't do that. An EMP-proof thumb drive with survival documents, yes, you can. That works just fine. So, I was wondering if Meckie's back. Meckie can announce himself when he arrives. So, in this biological weapons show arc, we've been talking about a whole bunch of things, to be honest. And this is, as Meckie alluded to at the top half of the show, where biological chemists have accidented themselves out of existence. And to be accidented, it means that you didn't do it, someone else did, just as Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. And it's important to recognize that there was a significant quantity of people, even people who worked together, died in different times, very close together with, what would be maybe old classical, CIA, brake failure or accidents and things that happen to you. So that's why we call it accidented. It's no real, because it's a tinfoil hat zone, we can presume a whole bunch of things and make suggestions. We're not saying the true cause of them all. We read them out, verbatim. Whatever was in the news story, we read that out. But you can make your own conclusions from the information. And we have the ability to join the dots as a personal opinion. We're not saying that it happened in always in the way that we say, but you're just. I suspect you guys think in a similar fashion to us. You want as much information before making a decision, or swaying whichever way it goes. And I respect that. That's what we do. And if new information comes up, we're happy to add that to the pile, reassess everything again, like triage it all, and then decide what's the true nature of it. But, because things are either an emerging event or a growing event, or it's in the past and it was very limited, Meckie's back, very limited amount of information, but maybe more has come out recently. I think it always respects, the information respects, it demands respect, and that we should analyze everything for what it really is. I think that's important. Whether or not, it's a passing phrase in a hallway to being a document that's been FOIA'd out, or it's an eyewitness saying the way it was. You can't dismiss that. I was having a conversation with a fellow the other day who said, Meckie, he said, well, this, I think it was one of our own astronauts, America's astronauts, who'd said that there was bases on the moon. And he's not in a good way. He's, knowing how old he would be today, it's one of those deathbed confessions. And I said, I think there's a lot of validity in what he's saying, just because it might be the first time you've heard it. It's not the first time that it's come out from those group of people. And if you take only his as an isolate, then you may not come to the same conclusion I've already come to. And here's some other things that I think you should look at. And he came back to me after looking at them, lovely fellow, and said, I think there's something to this. So initially he was dismissing it all as, just science fiction. And then it's like, wow, if they're all saying it, it only takes one witness to witness something. But if you've got a collection of ideas which all have an intermingling, sense of the same, then it's quite possibly that. Just trying to say, without saying if it quacks like a duck and walks like one, right?
It's probably a horse.
Yeah.
What?
That's my favorite quote from a movie, Meckie. The one about the school graduates from Delta House.
Oh, Animal House.
Animal House, yes. Where the captain has a broken neck, and it was done by the horse. It was very funny. So
you're so old. You're so old.
I am so old. Yeah. That's me. The old craft is working, kicking in there too. By the way, recently.
No, right? It's good. No, look, but look, it is an interesting situation at the moment, and Dave is right. Even though we're notoriously bad at observing things, the thing is this goes for people in the street. So people say people are bad witnesses, right? So generally, all people are bad witnesses. Not really so people that were trained to be observant. People that have situational awareness, that are mindful, which if the master astronaut is anything, it's that they're mindful, they're completely aware, they're in the moment, because if they don't make the right decision in that moment, they're dead. Right? If you do martial arts, you understand what I'm talking about. Now, so I will dismiss everybody in the street. Absolutely. You can. Whatever you say, I don't believe you. But they could be right. But if you've got a trained person, a person that was trained to remember things, observe things, to be mindful in the moment, and take note, different story altogether. That's why pilot evidence is so compelling. Astronaut evidence is so compelling. Any senior military person usually is a compelling.
So in this example, it was an astronaut.
Exactly, 100%. And we have
already bases on the moon. Wow.
Yeah, they're not ours though.
No, that's right.
The thing is this, though. This goes back tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of years. I know this is a complete departure from our show notes, but since you took us there, we have been active in space for a very, very long time indeed. And if it is a coexisting civilization underground, under the oceans, in inaccessible areas, who knows? It's so far ahead of us that we don't even know they're here unless, accidentally, we see them sometimes. That's odd. UFOs.
Watches.
Yes. And look, you look at the old stories, the ancient, the Vedas, you look at some of the architecture and some of the physical monuments that were left. I'm not going to go into the whole shebang of it now, but you are the crazy person, the conspiracy theorist, if you think there was nothing greater than us at some point in the past. There was nothing greater than what we have achieved. Civilization history is not a linear event. It's cyclical. The Roman Empire, it came and then it had great old time and it fell. That seems like a linear progression, but only from the point of view of the Roman Empire. And even that is somewhat limited. If you look at it from the point of view of the human race, empires come and go. It's cyclical. They start, they have a high time, and then they finish. It's a cycle. It's a cycle because there's no vacuum left behind normally, right? And it's not just in Europe where history happens either. So all these events are completely cyclical. The
Dark Ages is the best example where we all just started flinging mud at each other again.
Yeah, for the most part, right?
Yeah, it's blamed on Krakatoa, by the way. The whole downfall.
Well, I blame lead personally, but that's just me.
Well, that set them all mad, of course.
Yeah. I'm sure Krakatoa didn't help. But
we'll make all the water pipes out of lead. That can't be bad, right?
Oh, that's a good idea. That doesn't rust. Lead doesn't rust. That's there you go. You love the Three Stooges. Now you know how I am. Now you know how old I am. Let's speak the English. But yeah, so look, it's a really interesting situation at the moment. I wish we weren't living through it, but we are, so make the best of it. Like I said, I've just cleaned up my pantry. It took me 8 hours, Dave. Clean my pantries. I've got a couple of pantries, and I cleaned them out and got rid of things that aren't consumable anymore, and made space and just organized it better so I know what I have in case I need it.
We have so much flour and rice and canned goods right now that we're ready.
Yeah, cool. Look, I got 15 kilos of rice. Yep. I've got, 150 cans of food. beans, mostly
Nice.
beans, tomatoes,
Yeah.
things like that, right? I got flour as well, not as much flour, but we mostly eat rice anyway. And other things as well, like lentils, beans, dried up, staples. You got to think about where you're going to cook your food as well, everybody. Yeah, you have an outdoor barbecue, fireplace, whatever, and make sure that the cookware that you have actually can withstand that kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
Most of the cookware
that's a good point.
So cast iron cookware is really good. Anything with a heavy
Aluminium
bottom is really
pots
good.
aren't going to survive well in a barbecue.
No, that's not a good idea. So just make sure that whatever cooking utensils, like primitive stuff, the more primitive, if you got a cast iron pot, you're sweet. Set. I mean, all the cooking you're going to do it's not going to be gourmet stuff. It's going to be you're going to be making stews for a long time, right? Because that's easily cooked, packs a punch, and you can put it away for later and heat it up easily as well. So I think stew.
When I did the Syrian refugee challenge, I was making pita bread like a champion.
See, you can.
It just takes a few minutes, and you got something to eat. You got some bread to eat.
Water flour,
and just a little bit of oil and some salt. Yeah. That's all you have to do. That's it. It's so easy.
Yeah, but a lot of us have forgotten that. Where does milk come from? From the supermarket, okay. So
I don't put milk in my pita bread. But anyway.
No.
Yeah, that's right. Where does milk come from? The supermarket.
Supermarket, that's it.
Yeah, so look, this is show number 415.
510 and 400.
So that's where I got the 5 from. And we're in the midst of talking about the post-war period. And we're talking about, this was about being able to create weapons that would survive the explosion that you're spreading them with. All right. And now this came from when Japan and China were near the end of World War II, were about to become into a conflict. And this is where some of this information our discussions originated, because we couldn't believe that Japan wanted to launch the plane on China. And but sure enough, all of the evidence showed that they were weaponizing it, they were being able to deploy it, they were working on methods of being able to do it, they were working on Chinese prisoners and exposing them to the plague, so that they were making this thing a delivery platform and a mechanism into which to successfully win that battle. But Mackie, the chemical core, what did they do? Do you have your spot ready?
The United States Army Chemical Corps initiated a crash program to weaponize anthrax N in the E-61 half-pound hourglass bomblet. So the E-61 was one of those bombs that Dave talked about to survive the explosion. You have to get something to get the virus or bacteria to survive it. So though the program was successful in meeting its development goals, the lack of validation of the infectivity of anthrax stalled standardization. So they couldn't make it uniformly infective. The United States Air Force was also unsatisfied with the operational qualities of the M14 US bursting bomblet and labeled it an interim item until the Chemical Corps could deliver a superior weapon. Around 1950, the Chemical Corps also initiated a program to weaponize tularemia UL, so tularemia, in brackets UL. Shortly after the E-61N failed to make standardization, tularemia was standardized in the 3.4-inch M143 bursting spherical bomblet. This was intended for delivery by the MGM-29 Sergeant missile warhead and could produce 50% infection over a 7 square mile, which is about 18K area. That's actually
pretty good.
If you look at the statistics.
If you be that way, right? Yeah.
If you're a psychopathic mass murderer, that's really interesting. What? Although tularemia is treatable by antibiotics, treatment does not shorten the course of the disease. U.S. conscientious objectors were used as consenting test subjects for tularemia in a program known as Operation White Coat. So you don't want to fight? How about we inject you some disease? How you like that? Huh? You're going to fight now? There were also many. What?
And we stayed up all night coming up with that operation name.
Oh yeah.
You're wearing a white coat. That's it. Got it.
Ooh, I like it. There were also many unpublicized tests carried out in public places with bioagent simulants during the Cold War. We've covered some of that with you guys. In addition to the use of bursting bomblets for creating biological aerosols, the Chemical Corps started investigating aerosol-generating bomblets in the 1950s. The E-99 was the first workable design, but was too complex to be manufactured. So clearly, a lot of people had to, work on this. Like a really complicated watch takes a couple of years to assemble. Not really viable, right? By the late 1950s, the 4.5-inch E-120 spraying spherical bomblet was developed. A B-47 bomber with a SUU-24/A dispenser could infect 50% or more of the population of a 16 square mile area, about 41 clicks, with tularemia with the E-120. So yeah, that's progress in a sick kind of way. The E-120 was later superseded by dry-type agents. Even better, dry-type biologicals resemble talcum powder and can be disseminated as aerosols using gas expulsion devices instead of a burster or complex sprayer.
Just like Easy P. Just like Easy P from Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
100%. I know that's just... The chemicals, exactly right. The Chemical Corps developed flattener rotor bomblets and later triangular bomblets for wider coverage due to improved glide angles over Magnus Lift spherical bomblets. Weapons of this type were in advanced development by the time the program ended. Dave?
From January 1962, Rocky Mountain Arsenal grew purified and biomilitarized plant pathogen wheat stem rust. It's called TX, Agent TX. Puccinia grammis var tritici for the Air Force Biological Anti-Crop Program. Although there is no evidence that biological weapons were used by the United States, China and North Korea accused the US of large-scale field testing of BW against them during the Korean War, which, if you don't know, was 1950 to 1953. At the time of the Korean War, the United States had only weaponized one agent, Brucellus. Agent US is what it was called, which is caused by Brucella suis. The original weaponized form of the M114 bursting bomblet in M33 cluster bombs. While the specific form of the biological bomb was classified until some years after the Korean War, in the various exhibits of biological weapons that Korea alleged were dropped by the country, nothing resembled the M114 bomblet. There were ceramic containers that had some similarity to Japanese weapons used against the Chinese in World War II, developed by Unit 731, and that was on mainland China. However, the base in which they did all of the redevelopment was at Nagasaki. Cuba also accused the United States of spreading human and animal disease on their island nation. During the 1948 Israel War of Independence, international Red Cross reports raised suspicion that the Israeli Haganah militia had released Salmonella typhi bacteria into the water supply for the city of Accra, causing an outbreak of typhoid amongst the inhabitants. Egyptian troops later claimed to have captured disguised Haganah soldiers near wells in Gaza, whom they'd executed for allegedly attempting to another attack. Israel denies these allegations. Meki.
There's a shock. The Biological and Toxin Weapons Convention. The problem these days is that with genetic engineering and nanotechnology, the diseases that we're manufacturing can actually target specific genetic populations. Right? That's really the scary thing. They can if you've got a certain gene, they can actually target you with the disease. How about that for never going to sleep again, ever? Biological and Toxin Weapons Convention. In mid-1969, the UK and the Warsaw Pact separately introduced proposals to the UN to ban biological weapons, which would lead to the signing of the Biological and Toxin Weapons Convention in 1972. United States President Richard Nixon, I'm not a crook, signed an executive order on November 1969. I was about, well, how old was I?
That was actually pretty good.
That's not bad, right? We stopped production of biological weapons in the United States and allowed only scientific research of lethal biological agents and defensive measures such as immunization and biosafety. And I love this. It's like, sorry, I have to depart for a second here. At least, prior to World War I and II, the Germans were honest, and in fact, anybody was honest. It was called the War Ministry, right? It wasn't called the Ministry for Defense, and the army was called the Army. It's an army,
sure.
not the Defense Force. Okay, we save.
We're not
lives.
offensive. Yeah, that's right. We're defensive.
Yeah, and therefore, what is this? Oh yeah, allowed only scientific research of lethal biological agents. For defensive measures such as immunization, biosafety. Yeah, I'm sure that's the only reason.
That's what they did.
Oh, that's chronic. The biological munition stockpiles were destroyed. Sure, they were, and approximately 2,200 researchers became redundant. You think? Yeah, they just went to the dark programs. They're going to dark web now, man. Yeah,
they just went to the private industry.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Like projects. Yep.
Exactly. Special munitions for the United States Special Forces and the CIA and the Big Five weapons, we're going to talk about that in a second, for the military were destroyed in accordance with Nixon's executive order to end the offensive program. Silence you. The CIA maintained its collection of biologicals well into 1975 when it became the subject of the Senate Church Committee. So the CIA, see, they're not bound by what the president wants to do. Hey, President who now? Can't even come into this building with us. Without us, rather. In fact, you know what the funny thing is? If I visit my team in Canberra, I am not allowed in the building without an escort. That's hilarious, right? It is. Dave, why don't you tell us about the Big Five?
The Big Five was a series of biological weapons developed by the United States Army Chemical Corps Special Operations Division at Fort Detrick Biological Warfare Laboratory, BWL, for use by special forces, clearly defensive forces. These weapons were developed in the 1950s and 60s and were eventually destroyed, when the United States unilaterally ended its offensive biological warfare program. I think they just moved them to the defensive biological warfare program, as already been determined, Your Honor. So what are they? So that we have them listed here, Mackie. We'll just take them one by one.
Sure.
M1 BioDart E1, as it's known, a 7.62 millimeter rifle cartridge with a sabot surrounding a flechette with exterior grooves filled with either botulism or saxitocin, or possibly a combination of the two. Well, why not put both in? Oh, can we, sir? Yes, we can. There were 4,450 filled and 5,315 unfilled M1s in the arsenal at the time of its destruction.
No one is going to miss any. Come on, Bob. They're going to be destroyed anyway.
Come on, we can do this.
So what this is the funny thing. This is literally an arrowhead dipped in poison. That's what that is. That's the sophistication level of it, right?
Yeah. So the next one is sabot separates from the projectile at the exit of the muzzle.
Exactly. So it's an arrowhead tipped in poison. So I mean, hey, it works. Why, if it works, don't knock it, don't fix it, just make it better. Next one is the M2 separable bullet, and the classification here was E2, which also was a 7.62 millimeter rifle cartridge with a hollow metal bullet, this time containing dry type botulinum toxin A, or a simulant. The bullet would release a puff of aerosol on impact. Anthrax TR was another possible fill. There were 71,696 filled and 14,046 unfilled M2s in the arsenal at the time of destruction. But we made 1 million, sir. We did. I remember.
What am I writing this down before? Surely there's 3 more zeros. Oh no, there's not, surely. Okay, so M4, this is the disseminator.
Yeah.
I need to say that. Like, it's got to be in my mouth and it's out, right? A small gas expulsive device for disseminating a dry type agent such as tularemia or SR. There were 21,150 filled and 34,568 unfilled M4s in the arsenal at the time of the destruction.
Yes. The M5 Depositor. They're not really good names, you know. I don't know. It was classified as E44. A metal can that would expel a quantity of dry type from the side of the road to work as an anti-convoy device from secondary aerosols, in brackets kick-up. Though intended for anthrax, these were only filled with simulants, so not the real thing. There were 90 filled and 2,604 unfilled M5s in the arsenal at the time of its destruction.
I wonder, and there was another one, and there is. This is the M32 Disperser.
Yeah, now that's better.
It does sound better. It doesn't sound. It needs to have an animal name in there.
Yeah.
You know, attacking lion.
The Jaguar Disperser. Yeah.
Jaguar Disperser. Using a pressurized gas bottle regulator, heater and timer, the M32 was a man-pack weapon for pre-emplacement upwind of a target. The agent reservoir was an interchangeable compartment that held either 7 litres of wet type or 2.75 kilograms of dry type agent. It was intended for use with tularemia or simulants. There were 168 filled and 348 unfilled M32s in the arsenal at the time of its destruction. Well, that was what was written on it.
Yes, sir.
So remember all those anthrax outbreaks, Mackie, and they DNA tested them and found they were made in a specific lab because each one's unique. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So you could actually, you don't have to have a flying over weapon. You can just place this device somewhere upwind and trigger it, and voila.
Look, you can, depending on the virus or bacterium, you can add it to the water supply. You can do all kinds of crazy things, man. Mm-hmm. This is the danger of it, though, right? And the thing is, these days with the internet, what it is, and people having lost a common moral grounding, like an ethical foundation, like we used to have it. I'm not saying it was perfect. Don't get me wrong, right? I'm not naive. I don't think the world was a much better place than it is today. But I do strongly believe that individuals had a much higher capacity for ethics and a much deeper moral understanding in the years preceding the 1960s. Something happened in the 1960s that really changed the world, right? And I don't look. Am I a God botherer? No, I'm not, right? And at best, you probably describe me as either a quantum Presbyterian or an agnostic. And if you know where that reference is from, you're my kind of guy or girl, for that matter. But it is really it's really important to understand that we no longer have these underlying fundamental moral values in our society. That goes in Western society as much as in any other. In fact, Muslim societies and certainly some of the Eastern or Asian societies still have that. South Americans, Africans as well to some extent. Wherever the Western lifestyle has been adopted, we see an erosion of traditional values. And to me, that's a real shame. It's a real problem because we're not putting anything else in its place. Right? You can't just say God is dead and then just walk off and do whatever if you feel like. It just doesn't work that way. Not in a society that we have here on this planet. So that's lacking. So why am I saying all of this? Because it can take single actor players. We no longer need nation states. We don't need groups. We don't need terror organizations. A la Spectre. We need a single disgruntled, disillusioned, maybe slightly unhinged human being. That's all. That's it. That's it. You need nothing else, right? With the right access and the right set of circumstances, that's a catastrophe. because we are lacking a common moral and ethical understanding. We just don't have it anymore, Dave. That's why it's so dangerous. These like our days, our times. That's why that's so dangerous, because people just do what they want. In fact, it's getting worse. You know, I look at the kids growing up around me, and I'm not saying I would have been any different if I had grown up in this time, but their faces sucked into the screen. They play Fortnite. Killing is not really a thing, at least in the virtual world. So whatever. Television has become increasingly brutalizing. Things that you can see online, forget television, the things you can see online on YouTube and other places, God forbid you make it to the dark web, are shocking, right? I mean, cyberbullying, people are driven to suicide via technology. It's really insane. It's a whole bunch of stuff that is really worrying me, Dave. I got to say, we're just not living in a good world anymore, right?
Remember the comment from the Matrix, Mickey, which was as simple as, we made a perfect world and you guys didn't like it.
Yeah.
So we had to have all this ridiculousness for us to be able to live.
Oh, yeah.
We required hope. We couldn't just live without hope. Without something to strive for. If we have everything, where are you going to put it?
But that's the thing. Think about the Pacific Islands, Fiji, Samoa, whatever, right? Arguably one of the nicest places on the planet. Abundant food, fishing. There's fruit trees. It could be an easy life, right? But what you find there is that people still engage in warfare because they got bored. They engaged in cannibalism, ritual cannibalism, but also just regular, I guess, economic cannibalism, if you will. Slave taking, things like that. So there's something wrong with us fundamentally. I think I know what it is, but there's something that won't let us live in peace. We need some disruptor. We need some destructive, chaotic force that leads us to create again. So we build a sandcastle, someone comes and kicks it over. Build a sandcastle, someone comes to kick it over.
So Mickey, before 9/11. I've been watching some of the news articles from around the period, and there was an optimism and a happiness in everybody's face and their expression, the way they spoke, that we don't have anymore.
I know what you mean.
It was like it's been wiped away.
Yeah.
Like you're not allowed to have anything good any longer. That's the end of that. And it was deleted. It was like someone was able to do it historically, because I know we're living it every day now. When you do the same, find some old, morning show stuff from, the year 2000.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Have a look at the way that people spoke and that they addressed each other. And there was a thing. There was a time, Mickey, where we did want goodness.
Yeah, no, I agree. 2001 changed everything. I knew it as I watched it unfold.
As it happened,
yeah. The world is now a different place. I went downstairs. I think my girlfriend at the time was there. I was living with a couple of guys. And anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, I went downstairs and I said in the morning after all was said and done, because it happened overnight in Australia here. This is it. This is different. The world is a different place now. Nothing is going to be the same. And it wasn't long before that actually came to pass. Mm-hmm. I'm saddened by it every day. But let's understand what the Biological and Toxin Weapons Convention did, and what it did was it was signed by the US, the UK, and the then USSR, and other nations as a ban on development, production, and stockpiling of microbes or their poisonous products, except in amounts necessary for protective and peaceful research in 1972. I need 15 tons. I need 2 kilos. I need nothing. The convention bound its signatories to a far more stringent set of regulations than had been envisioned by the 1925 Geneva Protocols, as mentioned last week. By 1996, 137 countries had signed the treaty. However, it is believed that since the signing of the convention, the number of countries capable of producing such weapons has increased. There's a shock. The Soviet Union continued research and production of offensive biological weapons in a program called Biopreparat. Despite having signed the convention, the United States had no solid proof of this program until Dr. Vladimir Pasechnik defected in 1989, and Dr. Kanatian Alibekov, the first deputy director of Biopreparat, defected in 1992. Pathogens developed by the organization would be used in open-air trials. That's great. It is known that Vozhednie Island, located in the Aral Sea, was used as a testing site. Full stop. In 1971, such testing led to the accidental aerosol release of smallpox over the Aral Sea and a subsequent smallpox epidemic. Whoopsie! After the 1991 Persian Gulf War, Iraq admitted to the United Nations inspection team to having produced 19,000 liters of concentrated botulinum toxin, of which approximately 10,000 liters were loaded into military weapons. The 19,000 liters have never been fully accounted for. No, they're sitting in old men's and old women's foreheads. Your counter, 19,000 liters. They're all injected in your face. This is approximately 3 times the amount needed to kill the entire current human population by inhalation. I like it how we overkill, right? 3 times. That's enough. 3 times to kill us. Although in practice it would be impossible to distribute it so efficiently unless it is protected from oxygen. It does deteriorate in storage. So no, yeah, it's a real problem with efficiently distributing it here. According to the U.S. Congress Office of Technology Assessment, 8 countries were generally reported as having undeclared offensive biological warfare programs in 1995. China, Iran, Iraq, Israel, Libya, North Korea, Syria, and Taiwan. There's no way Pakistan and India didn't have that. 5 countries had admitted to having had offensive weapons or development programs in the past, and those countries are United States, Russia, France, the United Kingdom, and Canada. Hello. What's happening in the 21st century, my friend?
Well, on September 18th, 2001, and for a few days thereafter, several letters were received by members of the US Congress and American media outlets which contained intentionally prepared anthrax spores. The attacks sickened at least 22 people, of whom 5 died. The identity of the bioterrorist remained unknown until 2008, when an official suspect who had committed suicide was named. They're accidented, Mekki.
Yeah.
Suspicious of an ongoing Iraqi BW program were not substantiated. Suspicions of an ongoing program were not substantiated in the wake of the March 2003 invasion of that country. Later that year, however, Muammar Gaddafi was persuaded to terminate Libya's BW program. In 2008, according to the US Congressional Research Service report, China, Cuba, Egypt, Iran, Israel, North Korea, Russia, and Syria, and Taiwan, I put 2 hands in there, are considered with varying degrees of certainty to have some biological weaponry capability. BW, was that anthrax on its own? I think it is. By 2011, 165 countries had officially joined the BWC and pledged to disavow biological weapons. Yes, I was right. Biological weapons capabilities.
Oh, yes. It is. And look, yeah. I mean, people sign treaties, and the research goes on. It just goes black. It goes into black research.
That's right.
I mean, where do you think these billions? Yeah, it goes underground. I mean, it still happens, and because there are still psychopaths in charge. Psychopaths with an agenda, that have an agenda that spans thousands and thousands of years. Now, this is bringing us to the end. This is the very last thing we're going to share with you, and this is important because Ebola is specifically heinous. Okay, it's one of those diseases you pray you never come across in your life. But recently we saw, again, like I said, recently in the last 10 years or so, we saw the demise of a number of people that were highly invested in investigating it, researching it, and doing things with the Ebola virus. Well, what Ebola does to the human body defies reason. It's like something out of a horror movie, not a textbook. Similar to the Andromeda strain, the movie you might be familiar with. We know very little about where this virus came from. Just that the most likely ground zero was a fruit bat. These bats serve as natural reservoirs occasionally infecting other animals, from primates to antelopes, porcupines, rodents, dogs, and pigs. Most strains that can affect humans are extremely contagious and exceedingly lethal, with a fatality of between 60 and 90%. In 1994, Richard Preston, the New Yorker, the magazine contributor who has written a number of books about infectious disease, commented, "Ebola does in 10 days what it takes 10 years to accomplish." At the least, this is the most virulent and efficient strain of Ebola we've ever seen. At worst, we are witnessing the onset of a deadly mutation anticipated and feared for almost 4 decades. 289 of the 318 people who contracted the virus died during the first known Ebola outbreak in what's now known the Democratic Republic of the Congo in 1976. That's an 88% fatality rate. The same year, a less virulent strain appeared in the Sudan. 284 infected, 151 dead. It was 20 years before the next outbreak. In 1995, Ebola infected 315 and killed 250, a 77% fatality rate. From 1995 to 2012, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recorded a series of distinct Ebola epidemics in Gabon and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, claiming 621 lives. Their fatality rate is roughly between 50 and 90%. A 2000 epidemic in Uganda killed more than half of the 425 people infected. Dave?
That's right. The early symptoms of Ebola are flu-like, runny nose, chills, but then the virus begins to cause white blood cells to rupture and prevent blood from clotting. In the final stage of the disease, patients' eyes turn red and their genitals swell. They likely have purpura, subcutaneous hemorrhaging, and appear bruised all over. Sufferers can bleed from all orifices. Low blood pressure is what kills most victims. All it takes to contract Ebola is to be in contact with an infected person or bodily fluids thereof, even sweat or saliva. It can take up to 3 weeks for someone who's been infected to begin to suffer symptoms. According to the World Health Organization, the WHO, the CDC, working to control a panic, emphasized at this Monday press conference back then that sufferers may not be contagious until that point. But who hasn't ignored flu-like symptoms and gone out in public? Yeah. That's the crazy part. You shouldn't. We know how bad these things are. And, you know, Mackie, when I was growing up and I heard a virus could kill you, it's a virus, I laughed. I thought, that's pathetic. You know, when's that ever going to happen? Yeah. When can you get sick and die from something? Because, you know, we didn't grow up in the era of, you know, we were post-vaccination era. And so we didn't really see it. Because of its infectiousness and long incubation period, the banality of early symptoms, it can be difficult to track and contain Ebola, and we don't know how to cure it. Perversely enough, the virus is its own Achilles heel is how hot it is, in the words of Preston. He writes that the Ebola strain that surfaced in Sudan in the 1970s may only have been contained because it killed people so fast they didn't have much time to infect other people before they died. There is currently no vaccine, and due to its fast onset and horrific symptoms, it has become one of the world's most feared diseases.
Crazy. How does it spread? There are 5 strains of Ebola: Zaire, Sudan, Thai Forest, Bundibugyo, and Reston. The Zaire strain, which is involved in the latest outbreak, or back then anyway, is the most lethal with a fatality rate of up to 90%. Humans can catch the virus from animals through close contact with infected animals' blood, secretions, organs, or other bodily fluids. The virus is thought to reside within the region's fruitbat population, with the bats carriers of Ebola but unaffected by it. The bushmeat trade, the catching and eating of wild animals, including primates such as gorillas and chimpanzees, which I think that's a horrendous thing to do, is thought to play a role in outbreaks of disease, of this particular disease, I should say. While cooking infected meat kills the virus, handling of the meat beforehand can cause infection. Once in the human population, the virus continues spreading through direct contact with blood, secretion, organs, and other bodily fluids. The WHO, World Health Organization, has specifically noted traditional healing and burial practices in rural regions as a factor in the spread of the disease. This was back in July of 2014. And this is the end of this show cycle, Dave. That's right, we made it. Well done. No, look, absolutely. Very serious topic. I know we brought some humor to it, but if you didn't, I'd just be sitting here just crying the whole way through reading this and discussing it with my esteemed co-host. It is a horrendous thing to think about. I like the many worlds theory, dimensional travel and all that, and like books about that subject. And a lot of the books where dimensional travel is possible, you travel to parallel worlds. A lot of the authors visit plague worlds or try to avoid visiting plague worlds. And one of the things that one of the travelers finds in a cache of really advanced technology is a ring. Doesn't think much of it. A few other things in there as well. But it turns out that the ring is actually a multi-factor, vaccination protection against viruses, bacteria, all kinds of diseases. So it makes you immune to any number of disease vectors. If you wanted to jump between worlds, that of course is a handy item to have. Why do I bring this up? Because people have thought about this, and some of the descriptions in these stories, as they are quite horrendous. Worlds completely devoid of life, or at least human life, civilizations rendered, zero, null, void, gone. Some survivors, trying to scratch themselves back from extinction. Yes, okay, go on.
Okay, so just before the end of the show, I want to do two things. One, Jer Bear has a great show coming up, so we don't miss that when the music comes. And he says his guest will be the Watchman coming up at the top of the hour. Looking forward to that. So there's discussion right now, and if you want to do yourself a favor, and that is go to MedCram and get yourself updated on the coronavirus itself, or SARS-2. That's what I'm going to keep calling it. And there is talk of being able to utilize the what's in people's bloodstreams who have come out the other side, and to be able to inject that into the person suffering from it, or in as a preventative measure, and so that your body adds it to its defense mechanism. So it's rather than the broken version of the virus, it is just the RNA of the virus, which is really clever. Because remember what it does, it fakes entry to your cell. It connects to the ACE2 receptacle, and then your cell sucks it inside itself, and it goes, woohoo, I'm in, like a hacker, and starts producing itself. So if we can prevent that from occurring, and it says, well, hey, wait a minute, I recognize you. If we can do that, that would be awesome. And so this is, how they're talking just months? Well, it might be longer. The 18 months is what a normal process of making a vaccine would require. But we might be able to get some success from this, and this is another option. Anyway, Jer Bear, you're absolutely welcome. He says, thanks for the plug. I think we should be doing more of that.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a great show, and he goes through to dawn as well. So brave old Jer Bear. So yes, we have come to the end of the biological weapons show cycle. Next week there'll be another thing, and I'm looking for a guest in the middle, in between these two shows.
Beautiful.
What else? So do heed the advice. Try to limit your access outside to your populated areas. Wash your hands. Keep your as good practice, try not to touch your face, because that's the way in. Try not to be within, 6 feet of people. Downwind if you can. If you do actually have to catch public transport, attempt to, avert that as much as possible. And don't shake hands, wave. Or as a video I saw from China, they just tap feet.
Yep. That's
really good. I like that. Amazon's having a real hard time, Meki, because their supply chains, they're the first to get hit by it. The largest company on the planet almost, absolutely. Right? Have a look to see who goes under, goes to ground, and don't forget you can contact Meki through the website. Go to our website, Shiny Sun.
And thank you all contributors. Thank you everybody who's contributed some information to the show.
Absolutely.
That's just awesome. So thank you again to all the friends at the show.
Oh, and there has been some discussion about 5G being the cause. Look, I'm not willing to talk about it other than saying that phrase until there is some more evidence to link them together. At the moment, it's correlative. That's it. So, but other than that, stay healthy, get lots of good sleep. Very important. Stock up at home for with long-term foods so that allows you to limit your exposure if it comes to your town, and it's more than likely going to come to your town. And if I do my maths right, most of the planet will be infected with it and will have come out the other side through whatever that means. Whether we've come deceased or that we no longer show the symptoms, but it may be short-lived. It may have a second round. It may even mutate before a vaccine is created. We don't know. We just don't know what this is going to mean. So, stay informed. That's the best I can do.
Stay healthy. Stay fit.
Stay fit and stay healthy. All the good things. These are really easy things to achieve in your own life. So, but just do your best. If you have to, if you're having sleep problems, you could buy melatonin, like lolly kind of chewy things. You just have 1 or 2 of those, and you're out like a light. It's pretty good. And that allows you to have your normal circadian rhythms after that, and you can reteach your body how to sleep properly. And that way you get all of the natural healing from your pineal gland. Not like me, Meki. Mine's as hard as rock.
Yes, rocks that are jelly-like in nature.
It should be jelly-like. It's got a hard coating. Oh, boy. Oh. So catch us next week for show 416. That's what it's going to be.
6, 10,
and there's the music.
Crazy. Be safe.
Take care, everyone.